How you doing, everybody? Thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I enjoy a good sports film. I like boxing, and I enjoy a good underdog story. And so, as a movie fan, I think I can safely say that Hollywood has no shortage of great boxing movies. Still, my all-time favorite boxing film of all time, and one of my all-time favorite movies of all time, period, that is pretty high up there on my list of favorite films, is the original 1976 from director John G. Avildsen, starring Sylvester Stallone, Rocky. At the very start of the film, in the very first few minutes, we as the audience learn a lot about Sylvester Stallone's character Rocky Balboa, as we see him in a fight with some guy called Spider Rico in a club match, since he is a local club fighter in Philadelphia. We see Spider Rico headbutt Rocky, and so we see that Rocky isn't afraid to take a punch or a headbutt, but he also isn't afraid to hurt somebody if somebody tries to hurt him. He's willing to take a beating for just $40 for a fight. And then pretty soon we also learn that he is also an animal lover. He stops by a pet store on the walk home, kind of is playing with the pets through the window, tapping on the glass, saying hi to the dogs. Then he goes home and we see that he has little pets there. He has his turtles. He also has a dog, Butkus. He's living in this small little broken down apartment that's basically all one room because it doesn't look like he has his own bedroom. It's just like you come in the front door and there's the kitchen, a couple more steps to his bed, a few more steps to his living room, and that's it. And so, all he has is his little pets, his turtles, his dog, and he's looking kind of lonely. That's the feeling you get from those first few minutes is, okay, this guy is this loner and he is a fighter and he's tough but also, vulnerable. And right away you are on board with this character and rooting for him right from the beginning. And then we see him interacting with the owner of a pet store and somebody that he comes around every now and then to talk to by the name of Adrian, who he has a crush on, played by Talia Shire, who is great in the role of Adrian. And of course, you have her brother Paulie, who he's friends with, played by the late Burt Young, who recently passed away. May he rest in peace. Great character actor. After seeing Rocky in his little apartment, sitting on his bed, holding something cold up to his face, and looking quite miserable and alone, in the very next scene, for the first time, we see a smile on his face as he comes into a pet store to hang out with Adrian just for a minute. And Adrian is very shy, she's very quiet, and so what we gather from this scene here is they don't really know each other too well, but he just comes around just to kind of get to know her a little bit at a time by telling her a joke. And I guess it's like a routine with him. He comes around every now and then, tells her a new joke in order to slowly bring her out of her shell just a little bit at a time. After Rocky leaves the pet store till the next time he decides to come around and say hi to Adrian, we learn of another side to the character as we see he has a second line of work working as a loan shark. We see him trying to collect a debt, and when the guy can't pay, he is supposed to break his thumbs, but he decides ultimately not to. And we see that there is a line that this guy won't cross. Throughout the film, Rocky gets quite a bit of grief from certain characters, whether it's his friend Paulie or his friend slash boss Gazzo, who gets mad at Rocky for not breaking a couple fingers, or this young girl who stays out late at street corners hanging out with the wrong crowd, who Rocky tries to walk home and give some advice to Mick, who runs Mighty Mick's gym where Rocky trains at, and has his locker taken away by Mick because he gives it to somebody else who is considered a more respectable contender. And Mick is kind of looking down at Rocky for choosing to be a loan shark and just considers Rocky wasted talent. Meanwhile, as Rocky struggles through life, the heavyweight champion of the world, Apollo Creed, played by the great Carl Weathers, is having a real tough time keeping an opponent that will fight him, since there is a person that was supposed to fight Apollo but had some kind of problem and broke their hand, and now he needs to find somebody new that is willing to go toe to toe with him for 15 rounds in the ring. And all kinds of people are bowing out because nobody wants to go up against the champ. While going through a book of local listed Philadelphia boxers, Apollo Creed picks Rocky Balboa's name completely at random because he liked the nickname the Italian Stallion. And just because it has a nice ring to it, Rocky is given the offer and at first is very reluctant because he knows that he is not nearly in the same league as Apollo Creed. but because it is the chance of a lifetime, of course he's gonna have to see what he's made out of. And all the while, he's still trying to talk to Adrian, see if he can score a date with her, which he gets a little help in that department from her brother, his friend Polly. And the scene where he goes to pick up Adrian at her house for the first time, it's Thanksgiving. It's very awkward because she has this turkey in the oven and Polly is a complete asshole. And it's one of those scenes that I don't want to describe because if it's the first time you're watching it, it's just great to kind of experience it without knowing what's going to happen because it's kind of shocking to see how far Polly can go in terms of being such a jerk to his sister. From this point on in the film, once we see Rocky and Adrian have their first date, we come to realize that there is a lot more to this story than just some guy who's gonna fight another guy. This movie, at its core, really is a love story, and the relationship between Rocky and Adrian is really the heart of the film. Because this movie is about a boxer, the story does culminate with a big boxing match at the end of the film. But ultimately, that really isn't what the film is about. Rocky just wants to go the distance, and he just wants to know if he can be in the same league as Apollo. He just wants to last throughout the fight. He doesn't necessarily need to win, he just wants to win the girl. This entire movie is filled with one classic scene after another, like Rocky and Adrian going on their first date as he takes her ice skating at an empty ice skating rink. You also have a scene where Rocky is pounding repeatedly on a slab of beef at his friend Paulie's work. You also have the classic training montage that's always very inspiring and uplifting. You have Rocky running up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. But my personal favorite scene in the entire film is when Rocky is at his apartment and Mickey, played by Burgess Meredith, comes by and hears about the news of Rocky going to fight Apollo, and so he offers Rocky his services to be his trainer. And Rocky is kind of bitter because the past 10 years he's been trying to get Mickey's help, but Mickey was never really there for him. And this is a moment where he kind of just lets all of his emotion and frustration out. And Mickey walks out of the apartment and he's standing in the steps, and Rocky is just kind of letting loose one thing after another, just screaming at the top of his lungs. The moment when Rocky finishes all the screaming after he's let out everything that he had to say at that moment, as Mickey's trying to make his way out of Rocky's apartment building, for just a moment he's not saying a word and just standing there, and you can tell by the look on his face, and it's a great piece of acting on behalf of Sylvester Stallone. You can just tell how bad he feels about how he just treated Mickey. And the very next shot, we see kind of a faraway shot of Mickey walking down the street, and then all of a sudden, we hear the Rocky music, the piano theme, as Rocky comes out of his building, tries to catch up to Mickey, and puts his arm around him, and not a word is spoken. All you hear is the music, and just by that music, where sometimes you hear it throughout the film and it has a kind of a sad feeling about it, sometimes it's kind of uplifting, and sometimes it's a little hopeful. And in this moment, it is very, very hopeful as not a word is spoken or heard, but just by that music and by that image of Rocky putting his arm around Mickey, you kind of get a gist of what is being said. And it is a moment that always tugs at my heartstrings. It's one of my favorite moments in any film. There are many ingredients that make this movie the classic that it is, from the performances by the actors, the screenplay by Stallone, the direction by John G. Avildsen, but what gives this movie its heart and soul is that Rocky theme, that Bill Conti music score, that great piano music that we hear all throughout the film, that at times is very sad and is great at highlighting how the character feels when he's at his lowest points. But then comes the third act, and even though we hear that same music, we hear it in a different tempo when we hear the song Gonna Fly Now begin to play as we see Rocky getting into training mode. And it is very cool how you hear the same exact music, but all of a sudden it takes on a whole new meaning. As at first, throughout the first half of the film, it's very kind of somber and, like I said, sad at times, but then all of a sudden the same music is uplifting and inspiring. It's really 2 solid hours of movie magic with memorable characters and, of course, that great fight at the end, which is always very exciting, even on rewatches, even though I know the outcome. And there is no way I can ever watch this movie without having the urge to get up and do some push ups or some kind of working out. It's always very inspiring. Always a movie that lifts up my spirits and forever will be one of my personal favorite films of all time. Rocky is a 4-star classic. This is a movie you can find on streaming, but like I'm always saying, you got to get yourself a hard copy. And why not get the set with all the films? This has Rocky and Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, and of course Rocky Balboa, which came out in 2006. If you don't want the box set, of course you can find the original film on DVD or Blu ray all by itself. But, I'm just getting that out there because I figure if you're going to get the first one, you might as well get all of them because after watching that first one, you're going to want to see how things develop, especially throughout the 80s and, early 90s, and eventually the story goes into the 2000s. And then, of course, now we have the Creed movies, which I gotta admit, I really enjoy. I really love the film that came out in 2015, the first one, and I really enjoy the sequels. And I understand they're making a fourth one with Michael B. Jordan, and I'm there for it because I love the characters. I love this whole world, and I'm always going to be a big Rocky fan. There are a lot of great boxing movies out there. You got Southpaw, The Hurricane, you got Cinderella Man, Undisputed, you got Digstown, Raging Bull, a lot of other great black and white ones like Somebody Up There Likes Me, Body and Soul, and Champion. My personal favorite boxing film of all time, Rocky, 1976. Highly recommend it. You all should check it out if you haven't seen it. Thank you all very much for watching this classic movie review. If you're into classic movies and if you're into this kind of thing, do me a favor and hit the bell, become a subscriber, and look out for more classic movie reviews. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. I very much appreciate it. Until next time, everybody take care, God bless, and peace out.